Hey, welcome guys. We are going to be going over the Thor's Hound build that I created the other day using uh, some uniques. We are going to be, uh, so first off, we're going to go over uh, our abilities or on the skill tree. Um, we are using both Claw and Shadow Strike for this build because we are using the Great Staff of the Crone, which allows Claw to become a Storm skill and cast Storm Strike at the same time. So that reads there. As you can see, Claw is now a Storm skill and also cast Storm Strike at a, for us it's 126, but it's 120 to 150% of normal damage. So that allows us to actually be using two basic attacks at the same time, granting us more spirit generation in this sense, and allows us to do a vulnerable and immobilize, and more of a or more of an AOE with Claw itself. And we have it set specifically for using attack speed and a chance to attack twice. Okay. Um, as we go down further, instead of using like Tornado or Shred, we are using a Lightning Storm. Now this is a lower lucky hit chance, so lucky hit chance isn't as great in this build as most other builds, but we do clear rooms really very quickly. Um, we are using the size of the Lightning Storm is reversed for 6 seconds after channeling, and we have an additional strike. So instead of getting 5, we're getting 6. You could opt out of the additional one and go for a chance to immobilize. So not only are you getting immobilized from the chance from Storm Strike, but you could also get it from the Primal Lightning Storm. I went with the additional Lightning Strike, but that entirely is up to your choice. For passives, we're using 1 in the Heart of the Wild and 3 in Wild Impulses, so it costs more spirit but deals more damage. We don't really have to worry about too much spirit at this point because if we do run out of spirit, our claw is doing enough damage that it's still a good damage dealer, and we're getting our spirit back, our resource back as much as possible very quickly. We went with one in predatory instincts because close targets aren't as great, but it does give us a little bit because on my setup I am pulling enemies a little bit and people do get into melee range. So it just helps us mow those down a little, chance to mow those down a little quicker. I went 3 with 8, simply for the fact of the extra movement speed for faster clear time, because the idea is just go through the dungeon as fast as possible, clear out the mobs, and get through it as fast as possible for more EXP and more chance for loot farm. Come down here, put 1 into Essential Fortitude, 3 into Vigilance for that damage reduction after we use the defense skill, and we are using 2 defense skills on this build. So we are using Cyclone Armor just for basically its passive, and it can just shove people back. If we get too many people into close quarters, we can use that Cyclone Armor to just shove people back, but it is giving us a little bit of non-physical damage reduction. And Bloodhowl is our main source of heal in this one here. So we're healing for a good chunk of our maximum life. Because our idea is we're not as tanky as some of the other druid builds, but our idea is to out heal as much as possible because this has a cooldown that kills, that reduces kill on, or reduces cooldown on kill, and allows us to generate spirit. You could opt out of the spirit and go for the increased attack speed. I like the spirit because it allows us to keep channeling longer without having to fall back too much on claw. Hurricane in here, we're using that as another, technically it's a wrath skill, but we're using it more like a defensive skill. It's going to boost, because of aspects, it's going to boost all of our shape-shifting skills, which all of our storm skills are now considered shape-shifting skills through uniques. It's giving a little bit of crowd control for the slow, and we're doing it to increase damage by 20, damage dealt by 20%. So those melee characters that we're worried about getting too close to us are going to do less damage. For passives, we're using Neurotoxin. Neurotoxin is just going to make any poison enemies be slowed. And then we're going for Toxic Claws, critical strikes with our werewolf skills, which now all of our storm skills are werewolf skills. Because of the uniques, because we are going to be using the uniques of Mad Wolf Glee and Tempest Roar. These are mandatory to make this build work very well, because our storm skills will be werewolf skills, and they're going to get buffed also from Mad Wolf's Glee and our storm shifters. So that is kind of a mandatory, so we're getting +5 to all of our skills that way. But that's going to make our storm skills poison enemies on critical strikes, which is also, once they're poisoned, our storm skills are also going to get increased critical strike damage using Envenom. Further down here, we're not using Residence because we're not really using Earth skills in this build. We're using mainly just straight storm skills. But we are taking Natural Disaster, which your storm skills deal increased damage to enemies that are stunned, immobilized, or knocked back. So you could, like I said, you could go for more immobilizing effect by taking that out of here and moving it to here. You could do that. I've been doing just fine with the additional Lightning Strike, but you could go for that to get a little bit more immobilized, to take more advantage of Natural Disaster. I also went with 3 in Defiance, just because our Nature Magic skills will do increased damage to elites. Our Storm Strike is, or our Lightning Storm is considered a Nature Magic skill, and so is Storm Strike. Claw is not a Nature Magic skill, but because Claw is automatically casting Storm Strike, it's technically benefiting from it. So that works out there. I opted for more healing because we don't have as much damage reduction. I opted for more healing in Circle of Life. So Nature Magic skills that consume Spirit heal you for 3% of your maximum life. So we're actually gaining healing off of using our Lightning Storm. And Lightning Storm, we're hitting multiple enemies with that, so we can cast it a lot longer than, say, Tornado, which is a Spirit cost of 31, and we're throwing out tornadoes. We're actually getting more healing off of Lightning Storm with Circle of Life. Defensive postures in here for the amount of Fortify by 15%, because we are using Grizzly Rage with this build. Grizzly Rage is going to give us Fortify per second while it's active, right? So we're active for like 12 seconds. We're getting 8%. So that's our main source of Fortify in this, and are only unstoppable. So that could be an issue because we're not using things like Trample. We're not using Earthen Bulwark. That you're a little bit more susceptible to crowd control, but if you faster we kill stuff, we might have to worry a little bit less about that. Normally Grizzly Rage is not a werewolf skill, but with this aspect right here, Dire Wolf, Grizzly Rage now shapeshifts you into a Dire Werewolf. As a Dire Werewolf, you gain movement speed instead of damage reduction, and you gain spirit cost reduction. So when you're looking at Grizzly Rage, normally you would transform into a bear because it is a werebear skill, and you would get damage reduction. We are getting movement speed instead of damage reduction, and we get a damage bonus while active in this form. That damage bonus still exists while in this form, even with the Dire Bear. Only difference is we get movement speed, and we are gaining spirit cost reduction. our spirit. I have a max rolled dire wolf, so my spirit cost reduction goes from 12 per strike down to 3 per strike. So you can literally crank out lots and lots of damage really quickly. We are using Nature's Fury in this instead of using like Lupine Ferocity. Reason being is because Lightning Storm and stuff like that isn't a lot of good single target because it kind of spreads out the longer you cast it. It just gives it a 30% chance to pop a landslide underneath, giving us a little bit more single target damage against bosses. And that's why I opted for that. It's a little bit of extra damage in that single target area for bosses. So I'm going to go over the gear again. We are using Tempest Roar and the Mad Wolf's Glee, and we're using the Great Staff of the Crone. These are the 3 uniques that I'm using in this build and are kind of needed for this build to work really well. You could technically still run this build without the Great Staff of the Crone. You just wouldn't be able to take effect of the Claw. And if that was the case, you could literally just opt out of using Claw in general and just run Storm Strike, and that would give you 3 extra points to put somewhere else. And you could easily put those points probably where could we put those points? Like Thick Hide, so whenever you're immobilized, knockdown, or stunned, or whenever you're hit, you gain Fortify. You could do things like that. You could try to squeeze Earthen Bulwark in, stuff like that. Maybe put a point into Landslide, so you can get the whenever you strike an immobilized enemy with a landslide, an additional pillar is formed. So like you actually immobilize the enemy, and then this one here will also, yeah, you could take that out of there and get a couple of extra buffs to the landslide, 30% landslide effect. I wouldn't go with the Terra Mote because if you don't have landslide on your board, you won't actually take effect of the Terra Motes. But if you were to do without it, you could probably put a point into landslide, put a point into enhanced landslide for another chance for immobilized to get that bonus from natural disaster, and go for this one here, so that way even if you do hit an immobilized enemy or a stunned enemy with the landslide, because it triggers, it's going to form an additional pillar. That is an option. For the Paragon board, my Paragon board on here is not completed. I will have a link to the completed Paragon board through d4builds.gg. That'll be a link in a video that you can actually see a fully done up. I am not level 100. Spirit bones, we are using Wiriness, and then we are using Scythe Talons and Avian's Wrath. The reason why we're doing that is more critical strikes, based on the other gear that we're using, like Runeworker's Conduit, critical strikes with storm skills that you cast, charge the air around you, causing lightning bolt to periodically hit the enemy in the area. That's like an area effect that's around you. The more critical strikes you have, the better, the more this will be up, and this is actually an extra added damage bonus. We are also running a Disobedience. Since there's not a lot of defensive stuff in this build, Disobedience on your legs is pretty much almost a must-have. You could argue with Vigorous Aspect on here as well. As the Vigorous Aspect reads, you can grab it out of the Codex. I think it's in the Codex. Gain damage reduction while shapeshift into a werewolf. You could argue to use that over Disobedience, but I found that this maxes out at 15%. And right here, 30% more armor. Armor equipped relates to base damage reduction as you're looking here. Like this one here is requires physical damage reduces physical damage taken from enemies of equal level by 44%. More armor contributes, basically. So I've found Disobedience, even though the nerf, works still a lot better than that. Dire Wolves is a must for the build, so that way Grizzly Rage is a werewolf skill and provides that spirit cost reduction. Kills will heal 10% of your maximum life as well. So the more you kill, the more life you're gaining. So we're just basically trying to out-heal most of the damage that's incoming while still lowering as much damage as possible. We are using Lightning Dancers. You could opt out of Lightning Dancers if you wanted to, or opt out of here and go for something else, like a utility, like move your Storm Shifters over there, or something to that effect. But I found that Retaliation is working out really well because we are gaining Fortify off our Grizzly Rage, and our Grizzly Rage is coming up quite a much. It seems to be just fine. That's where the other Spirit Boons come into play, because extending the duration of our ultimate skills by 25% means we can be in Grizzly Rage form longer, meaning we're gaining more Fortify to get more damage reduction while fortified. We're getting that added effect of the resource cooldown, the movement speed, moving faster, and we also went with Calm Before the Storm with the lucky hit of Nature Magic skills have a 10% chance to reduce the cooldown of your ultimate by 2 seconds, getting us more uptime on our Grizzly Rage. Retaliation is going to boost our damage while we're full. Lightning Dancers is when Lightning Storm critical strikes, it's going to send out like Charge Bolts, which is more AoE damage that's going on in that field of area that we're doing. So beyond that, that's pretty much what the build is consisting of. I'm going to go into a Nightmare Dungeon. We're going to do a tier 40 and give you guys a little bit of gameplay to see how it works. You guys can kind of play around with it. Let's say you were to use a different weapon other than the Crones, you might be able to do a one-handed and a totem. Yeah, these enemies are above 90, they're 94 enemies, and we're just melting. They're 9 levels above us. 41 is, I was playing around on a 41 yesterday, and I was doing alright. The bossing potential, the boss is going to take a little bit longer, but we're spending less time messing around with the enemies in here. Just trying to out-heal. That's basically that damage. You guys are probably also wondering why we have the immune. Okay, I'll have to go over that in just a minute. We are using the Barber Heart on this build, and I'm yanking people towards me. It does give us a little bit double-edged sword because we are using the Inexorable Force part to yank people towards us. You could opt out of that pull and go for like Susana. Would be just fine. But the Barber Heart does lots of damage for us. It's going to be stacking the damage when we crit, and then it's going to explode for an AoE, doing damage around. Barber Heart is just absolutely amazing. I really like it. We do lose a little bit of the lucky hit chance, because Barber Heart will not, like, damage from Barber Heart will not proc lucky hit, but our uptime on our Grizzly Rage, we're popping Grizzly Rage pretty often. It's working out fairly well. We're getting a lot of uptime on our other skills. thing. Like I said, Claw still does lots of damage. So, like, as we're cruising through this, it's not going to take us very long to do stuff in here. More clearing of the room. You know, it's super fast. You could almost, like, pretty much be getting off-screen kills with this. So, taking advantage of that aspect of, like, yeah, we can be off-screen killed sometimes by some gun effects, but we are now also off-screen killing some of our enemies with this build. So that makes it nice. Here's a cursed shrine. We're going to be able to cruise right through this shrine, no problem. You can see Claw is taking stuff out as well. I don't know what's going on here. Like, did we kill all the enemies? No. We'll just move on. Come back to it. Like, you got Claw and Rune Workers on top of that at the same time. That proc is a Barber Heart for like 1.9 mil. Like, even our Claw procs it. It's not going to take long. It's super easy. You can farm tier 40 nightmare dungeons with it. It's a fairly decent build. Yeah, it's very gear oriented, but from what I've understood with a lot of the werewolf builds going on in the game right now, that it's mainly just straight. You gotta have Tempered War for a lot of werewolf stuff going on. That may change here when they do the next patch on the 8th. But as of right now, Tempered War is like a must for all the werewolf builds going on right now. Like, see there? Like, we got down like half health with all that down there, but we were still able to out-heal it. It feels pretty comfortable. Now for the boss fights, it does take a little bit longer. but it's still extremely doable. Especially against things like the Toon Lord. Extremely doable.
I must wait a moment.
Grab that. Like I said, extremely doable. The spirit boons are all really nicely tied together for a great synergy with this build, along with the abilities on the skill tree. They synergize really well. Like, as you can see, we're getting ranks to like everything. We have a 13 right now for that. If we were to activate here and go into the abilities, you would see that jumps to a 15. You know, 7 to Cyclone Armor. Claw. It's just crazy the amounts of damage that you can get out of some of this. Like, even a lot of my glyphs are not even maxed out yet on here, and we're doing great. I guess that'll do it for the video for now, guys. If you have questions, you can find me on Twitch. I stream 5 days a week. There is a stream schedule up on my Twitch channel. I will put. I also have a Discord. I can attach a link. I can't promise the link will work because it's only a temporary link, but you can shoot me messages through Twitch. Attempt to find me on Discord. I will post all that stuff in the description of the video for you guys. So yeah, come check me out on Twitch. Come hang out in Discord and bullshit around. I'll be posting more builds later. I have other builds that I did. I have one that I made with the help of Moxie called the Ragnarok Druid build. That is also linked in there, linked in the Discord. I can also technically put a link to that through this video, and you guys can check that out.